Have you ever had this happen to you? You bolt awake, your chest tight, and you're panting, terrified. You've just had the most awful nightmare. You look around the room. There's a dim light, either from your cell phone charger, a soft nightlight, or the flickering glow of an oil lamp behind thick, washy paper. It's enough for you to see by, at least a little bit. After checking all the corners of your room, the foot of your bed, and that half-open closet, and finding no one there, you relax just a little. Take a few deep breaths. Tell yourself it was just a nightmare, not real at all. But it's a nightmare you've had before. Many times, in fact. You wish you'd stop having it. Just then there's a noise. The sound of your window sliding open. You pull the covers up to your chin and watch, horrified, as the most freaky-looking creature you've ever seen climbs into your room. Believe it or not, today's show isn't a scary one. It's a sweet one, an endearing one, a downright cute one, if you will. On today's Uncanny Japan, I'm going to tell you about a Japanese mythical creature, often said to be a yokai, although I've seen some debate about that. It's called a Baku, and it's really here to help you, I promise. Uncanny Japan is author me, Teresa Matsura, exploring all that is weird from old Japan. Strange superstitions and old wives' tales, cultural oddities and interesting language quirks. These are little treasures I dig up while doing research for my writing, and I want to share them with you here on Uncanny Japan. I hope you like the show. So what exactly is that creature making its way across the floor toward you? Let's take a closer look. That creature is called a Baku, and it has a long nose like an elephant, 4 feet that look like they belong to a tiger. Its body resembles a bear. Its eyes, that of a rhino. It sports 2 tusks, and on its back end flicks the tail of an ox. But keep in mind, there are several different varieties. Why such a patchwork beast? Well, one explanation is that when the gods were done creating all the animals, they looked around, gathered up the scraps, and cobbled together the Baku. So the Baku is a legendary creature that made its way from China to Japan at about the same time Buddhism did. The Chinese version is a little different, actually protecting a person from pestilence and evil. While in Japan, the Baku's sole purpose seems to be to eat your dreams, or better, your nightmares. It needs them to survive. It's said that back in the day, children who woke from a nightmare would know to repeat 3 times, "Baku-san, come eat my dream." I've seen a couple different versions in Japanese, one being, "Kono yume Baku ni agemasu." Literally, I give this dream to the Baku. Either way, after repeating 3 times one of those lines or something similar, the Baku will enter the room, make its way over, and gobble up the bad dream. The dreamer will then never have that particular nightmare again. So that's what this strange-looking Baku does. It spends the night hopping from rooftop to rooftop, listening for someone to yell out so it can hurry over and feast on their bad dreams. I read in a couple places that you have to be careful. If you call a Baku too often, it will get greedy and it won't stop at your nightmares. It will proceed to devour all of your hopes and dreams and aspirations, leaving you with an entirely meaningless life. But I couldn't find that exact sentiment written in Japanese. There's no way I can read everything about this adorable little guy, so maybe I missed it. There's one thing I did find, though, and that is, sadly, in recent times, some stories about the Baku have flipped the mythology. Instead of eating only your nightmares, it does eat your dreams, and I guess this could include all your hopes and goals, which turns this adorable little weird beastie into a bad guy. But he isn't. No matter how bizarre he looks, and how he might be sneaking into your window late at night, he's there to help you. Speaking of that, as a way of proof, this month on Patreon, I read Lafcadio Hearn's story about the Baku, the eater of dreams. And in it, the Baku, after being called, actually refuses to eat a lucky dream. Okay, here's something interesting. If you live in Japan or are planning to visit, you can sometimes still see depictions of the Baku on old shrines or temples. Look up. You know how the corners of those fancy curved roofs where you can sometimes find carvings of lucky mythical creatures? Well, at some temples and shrines, they do have a Baku or two looking down at you. They're easy to identify because of that long nose. Let's look at the Baku through the ages. In the late Muromachi period around the 1500s, both the image and the character of the Baku were used as good luck charms. For example, and this is something you can do next month if you'd like, if you want your first dreams of the new year to be pleasant and auspicious, you can get or make a drawing of a takarabune, a treasure boat. That's the boat the 7 lucky gods sail on, and you slip that under your pillow. Now, to further up your sweet dreams potential, you could write the character for Baku on the sail of the boat. Also, in the Muromachi era, I read that people who were on their deathbeds would be given an image of the Baku to hold as a protection against evil spirits. Then, more recently in the Edo era, I found that some people used Baku-shaped pillows to fend off bad dreams. And by pillows, I'm not talking about the soft, down-filled things we use today. Pillows back then were made of wood or ceramic, with a small cloth tube filled with something like soba husks tied to the top. If you search around, you can find the ceramic ones that are actually in the shape of a sleeping Baku. Then it said that even in the 1910s, Japanese children kept Baku talisman by their bedsides. One thing you'll discover pretty quickly when researching this curious beast is that the word Baku, as well as the kanji, both refer to the Asian tapir, an animal that is also a little funky looking with its long nose and kind of striped body. I found 2 lines of thought with this. One is that the mythical Baku came first, then when the tapir was seen, because it resembled the dream eater, it was given the same name. But another theory is that there used to be a kind of tapir that lived in China long, long ago, but is now extinct. We don't really know what it looked like, but perhaps the nightmare-devouring creature we have now might have been based on that animal. When reading around, I was pleasantly surprised to find that the Baku, even now, is hanging around in popular culture. One I already knew about was the Pokemon Drowsy in English or Sulipu in Japanese. Its special ability is to put people to sleep and to eat their dreams. It tends to like good dreams, though. So maybe this is where the myth turned around, like I mentioned earlier. Another reference in popular culture is author Neil Gaiman's Sandman, The Dream Hunters, which is illustrated by Yoshitaka Amano. I've got the giant The Absolute Sandman, Volume 1, which I actually got signed by Neil when he came to Tokyo so many years ago, but it didn't have this story in it. I just looked, and it seems like The Dream Hunters is an Absolute Sandman Volume 5. It's a story about a monk, a fox spirit, a tanuki, and a Baku. Another mention of the Baku that I was kind of surprised about and happy to see is in an episode of Supernatural. I'm sure the little guy is out there in other places as well, so if you've seen him or heard about him or anything quite similar, please let me know. I'm very curious. So I'll finish up with this. Remember, next time you wake up from a bad dream, clutch your blanket tight and say 3 times, Kono yume Baku ni agemasu, or I give this dream to the Baku. And then, don't be surprised if your window slides open and a freaky little creature lumbers in. Or, if you prefer, you could preemptively stop those nightmares and encourage good sleep by keeping an image of the Baku nearby, a talisman, a drawing under your pillow, or how about one stitched onto your pillowcase? Thank you all for listening, and if you want to hear me read Lafcadio Hearn's story, The Eater of Dreams, it's this month's bedtime story over on Patreon. For only $5 a month support, you can hear that, and I think like over 30 other folk tales and stories. We're a 2-person show here, and your support really, really does help. As a matter of fact, the microphone that I've been using for the past year decided to crap out on me about a month ago. Rich Pav and I were making do with old mics and his sound savvy, but because of my gracious patrons, I was able to level up and get a Shure SM7B, which I'm absolutely in love with, and I thank them so much because it couldn't have happened without them. Everyone take care, stay healthy, make sure you're not calcium deficient. We've only got 1 more month left of 2020, and I will talk to you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. You've just reached the end of another episode of Uncanny Japan. Perhaps you'd like more. A monthly folktale translated and retold by me. The occasional binaurally mic'd soundscape like the ones you hear on this show. Or recipes, behind-the-curtain episodes, homemade postcards, and more. If you're interested in that or supporting the show in any way, please search for Uncanny Japan and Patreon. We've got a wonderful group over there. Thank you again for listening, supporting, reviewing, and telling your friends about the show. My name is Teresa Matsura, and I will talk to you again soon.